Welcome everyone to the Armageddon game between Vishy Anand and Rauf Mamedov. Game 1 ended in Anand's favor and game 2 of the Rapid ended in Mamedov's favor. And now we are off with Anand having 5 minutes, Mamedov having 4. We are into Sicilian Rosolimo here. G6 has been played on the board, Vichy castles. Bishop g7, c3. Mind you, in an Armageddon game, there is no increment. Short castle by black. This is all mainline theory. h3 by Vichy. Before going d4, he wants to just make sure that he plays this safe, solid move. Queen b6 and a4. This is all preparation. Mamedov has played this opening in the past against Pragnananda, and as we know, Vichy does work with these youngsters. Bishop c4, d6, and now pawn up to d4. White's position is very pleasant. He has castled, he has this strong center. Black's pieces have developed, but what he lacks is space. And already you can see Mamedov thinking for his move. He's down to 3 minutes 22 seconds while Vichy has made good use of his time in the opening. CD, CD. Although black is 1 minute down on the clock, what he gets in return is draw odds. If the game ends in a draw, then Mamedov is through. How should black continue here? He goes knight to d7, attacking the pawn on d4. Vichy now seems to be, for the first time, out of book. He's trying to think what to do. If he pushes his pawn to d5, then the e5 square is lost. So that is not something that he would like to do. But if he moves his bishop to e3, then the b2 pawn is lost. Of course, in this Armageddon game, you really don't want to be taking so much time. But at the same time, you do not want to land up in a bad position as well. So it's a very fine line between taking time. At the same moment, you have to get a good position. Vichy feels that this is the critical moment of the game and tries to put in some effort here. What should white do? Should he save his pawn on d4 with bishop e3, giving up his b2 pawn, or should he push his pawn to d5? Vichy has been known to take his time at critical moments and then speed up. But it's very difficult when you have played rapid games just a few minutes ago and now you have to switch to the blitz format, that too without increment. And there you have Anand plays bishop e3. He is ready to give up his b2 pawn there. Very interesting decision by the Indian Grandmaster. Mamedov knows that taking the b2 pawn is risky. He first plays his knight to a5. Now Vichy can play knight to d2, defending his bishop and also developing a piece. Or he can drop his bishop back to a2, can also drop it back to f1. White's position is very pleasant here. Vichy is hesitating a bit, and if you see the time, he's now moved down to 3 minutes on the clock. Bishop f1, and Mamedov takes the pawn on b2. Knight bd2 has been played. So Anand has sacrificed a pawn, but in return has brilliant compensation. Queen goes back to b6. Vichy taking his time here. He can play his rook to b1, which is a very natural move, getting his rook into the game. But when you have sacrificed a pawn, you want to show some concrete compensation for it. This is where Anand's choices are plenty but not easy. He can also continue with queen c2, just developing his queen. But he's clearly taking a lot of time, and it could also be because Vichy is playing a tournament after 5 months, over the board tournament. He pushes his pawn to e5. Now if you take on e5, pawn takes, the bishop attacks the queen. That is what Anand's idea is here. Mamedov rightly brings his queen back to d8. The queen is safe now. He says to Vichy, I've taken a pawn, show me the compensation for it. Anand takes the pawn on d6. He takes it back. White still has great position. His pieces are well placed, but black is okay. Knight to e4 by Vishy, attacking the pawn on d6. Now d5 looks very natural, but it gives up the c5 square. And so Mamedov plays knight f6, hoping to exchange a few pieces on the board. If you look at the time, Vishy is down to 2 minutes. It's very difficult to play when you are down so low on time, but also there's no increment. So that is the difficult part in Armageddon. Bishop f5. Now Anand can place knight back to g3 here, and then bishop moves back and bring it back to e4, but a draw is a great result for black, and Vishy has to fight for a win here. Just hesitating there, what to do. Knight g3 is a possible move. He goes knight d2, and now Mamedov can just push his pawn to d5. Yeah, he does it. Now Anand doesn't want to really exchange pieces with knight takes f6. He can put his knight to c5. He goes knight g3, attacking the bishop. The bishop comes back. Knight f3. But look at the time. Vishy is now down to 1 minute on his clock with no increment. His position is also not particularly great. Pawn to h6, bishop comes back. He started moving quickly. The knight comes back, and you can see Mamedov's time. He's 1 minute ahead on clock. He started with 1 minute less, but he's 1 minute ahead. Rook b1, attacking the pawn on b7. Can Anand finish this game in 51 seconds? Seems unlikely. Mamedov knows that if he makes logical good moves here, he should be able to win on time. But the pressure of facing a world-class player like Vishy is not easy. The b7 pawn is attacked. You don't want to go back knight a5 because that's where you brought your knight back from. Also, rook b8 is impossible because the bishop is controlling that b8 square. Queen d7 could be met with moves like knight e5. So it's not an easy position, and Mamedov plays the very, very ugly move, rook a7. You don't want to be putting your rook there, but he hopes that the rook will come back in the game later on. Queen c1 by Vishy. He's slowly making his moves quickly and attacking this pawn on h6. King h7 was a natural move, but Mamedov says, let me give back the pawn at least to exchange a few pieces here. Knight takes g3, and now Vishy takes on g7. King takes, and fg3. The queen moves. Look at Mamedov's speed of playing. He has 57 seconds. Vishy is down to 24 seconds. Anand is not realized that this is without increment. It's just moving a little too slow here. Queen c5. The queen moves in. I like White's position. He is attacking the rook on a7. Could be loose. Rook c8. And now Vishy goes g4. Idea could be to play g5 as well. Queen moves to f4. And now the rook moves in to b6. Threatening rook takes c6, and the rook on a7 would hang. Rook moves back to a8. And now there you have it. Vishy sacks his rook for a bishop. Knight d8 is a mistake, and he takes on g6. fg6, and now queen takes d5 would be a good move. He gives queen e7 check, knight f7, and he picks up his rook, takes on g6, but he has lost on time there. What a final finish there. So much action on the board. Well, there was a point where Vishy sacrificed his rook, knight d8. He could have moved his queen to e7 here with a winning position. Instead, he took on g6, which was also nice, and here queen takes d5 would have given him a winning advantage, but Mamedov was very quick. Vishy was not as quick as he could be, and that's the reason why he has lost. But he gets 1 point. Richard Rapport on number 1 position with 3 points. He beat Sergey Karyakin. Caruana got the better of Asadli Vugar. Shakhriyar Mamedyarov beat David Navara, and Vishy Anand lost to Rauf Mamedov. For wins in the Rapid, you get 3 points. For winning in the Armageddon, you get 2 points. That's how the standings are for the Gashimo Memorial 2021.